The baby orangutan kept screaming at Momface when she held his head. The most shocking thing happened. The air in the primate wing usually smelled of damp earth and sweet fruit, but that morning it smelled like an agonizing electric mystery. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day Emily Donovan preferred, with the gray sky hanging low over the city and the rhythmic, hypnotic drumming of rain against the skylights of the Regenstein Center creating a heavy, atmospheric hush. Inside, the chaotic symphony of the zoo had been replaced by a sound that made everyone's skin crawl, a piercing, glass-shattering scream. Zola, the newest infant in the orangutan troop, was usually a bundle of quiet curiosity, but today he was in a state of controlled chaos. Every time his mother Maya tried to pull him close to comfort him, the baby orangutan kept screaming directly at his mom's face. When she finally reached out and held his head to steady him, the most shocking thing happened. A moment of biological revelation and emotional complexity that left the keepers absolutely speechless and in floods of tears. What happens when a mother's touch, the very thing meant to heal, becomes the trigger for a primal terror? We expected a standard case of infant colic or a minor ear infection when the screaming started today. Instead, we witnessed a cognitive crisis so profound it challenges everything we know about primate neurology and the unbreakable bonds of the great apes. Watch how this mother's desperate attempt to calm her son led to a discovery that left the entire zoo in tears. Before we dive into this incredible, heart-wrenching story of a mother's intuition, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to keep sharing these powerful stories of the animal kingdom. Ring that bell so you never miss an update. Emily had been a lead zookeeper for nearly 5 years, and she had seen just about everything in the realm of primate behavior. She knew the distinct personalities of every ape in her care better than she knew some of her own cousins. She knew that Maya was a soulful giant who led with a jagged scar on her left palm, a mark of her own resilience and a spirit of quiet, unwavering patience. But today, the atmosphere shifted into something sharp and dangerous. The air grew heavy, charged with a static that made the hair on Emily's arms stand up as Zola's screams reached a fever pitch, echoing off the concrete walls and drawing the attention of Kobe, the neighboring gorilla patriarch. It started with a sound, not a whimper, but a jagged, percussive shriek every time Maya's hand brushed Zola's temple. Emily had been in the back enrichment room, preparing burlap sacks filled with wood wool and raisins, when the palpable tension reached a breaking point on the monitors. "James, look at Zola. He's not just crying, he's reacting to her touch as if it's fire," Emily shouted into her radio, her voice steady but tight with a terrifying, heavy realization. James, the head keeper, responded from the observation deck, his voice a ragged whisper of concern. "Protocol says we monitor for another hour, Emily. But Maya is getting frantic. If she holds him too tight in her panic, she might hurt him." As the screaming intensified, Maya did the shocking thing. She didn't pull away in frustration. Instead, she sat perfectly still, looked at her infant with glassy and distant eyes, and slowly, with a trembling hand, she reached out and held Zola's head firmly between her large, leathery palms. Everyone expected the baby to scream louder, to thrash or bite. But as soon as her hands made full contact with his skull, the most shocking thing happened. Zola didn't scream. He went instantly, terrifyingly silent. His eyes rolled back, and he slumped against Maya's chest. "Dr. Williams, look at the biometrics," Emily noted, her eyes glued to the flickering screens. His heart rate didn't drop. It spiked. "He's in atrial fibrillation. Maya isn't hurting him. She's accidentally triggering a massive neurological event by trying to steady him." The controlled chaos of the intervention was in full swing, but it was a chaos of the system. Maya, sensing the sudden limp weight of her son, began to rock him frantically, her own soulful eyes wide, with a realization that her touch was somehow tied to his collapse. The next 10 minutes were a roller coaster of adrenaline, medical mystery, and pure heartbreak. The palpable tension was a physical weight in the room as the keepers moved to shift Maya into the night quarters so they could reach the infant, but Maya refused to move. She held Zola's head even tighter, her solemn intelligence telling her that letting go meant losing him forever. She believed she was holding his life together with her hands. "She's going to trigger another arrest, James. We have to get him away from her." Emily cried out as she watched the monitors. The strain of the standoff was visible in Maya's own vitals. Her own heart was beginning to quiver in sympathetic distress. Suddenly, the green line on Zola's remote sensor went flat, a long, agonizing beep that pierced the control room and sent a shockwave through the staff. "He's in cardiac arrest," Dr. Williams barked, throwing on his emergency gear. "The pressure and the stress have triggered a total systemic failure. His heart has stopped while she's holding him." The incredible moment happened just as the medical team entered the enclosure. Maya didn't charge them. She looked at Emily, let out a low, mournful moan, and gently laid Zola on the straw, stepping back with her hands open as if to say, "I can't fix him. You have to." The rescue team moved in with a quiet, somber reverence, quickly rushing the infant to the clinical suite. The wing, usually quiet on a rainy Tuesday, became a hive of frantic, hushed activity as they worked to bring Zola back. Emily stood by the glass, her fingers brushing the cold surface, watching as Dr. Williams applied the miniature paddles to the infant's tiny chest. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and the rhythmic, hollow sound of the rain hitting the skylights. Clear. Zola's tiny body arched under the current, nothing but the flatline's cruel, steady whistle. Clear. Another jolt. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the rain. Clear. Finally, a faint, stuttering beep, beep, returned to the monitor. "He's back," Dr. Williams exhaled, wiping sweat from his forehead with a trembling hand. "But we found the reason. He has a rare congenital malformation at the base of his skull." When Maya held his head to comfort him, she was inadvertently putting pressure on a sensitive nerve cluster that regulates his heart rhythm. Her love was literally stopping his heart. The unbreakable bonds of the sanctuary were on full display, revealing a tragedy that no one could have predicted. The recovery for Zola was a testament to the staggering depth of primate care and the brilliance of modern veterinary medicine. For the next 3 weeks, he was kept in a specialized medical cradle that kept his head perfectly aligned, preventing any further pressure on the nerve. Every single day, Maya would sit at the clinic window, her face pressed against the glass in a state of solemn intelligence. She wouldn't eat her favorite fruits, choosing instead to watch the rise and fall of her son's chest from a distance. She seemed to understand that her touch, the thing she wanted most to give, was the one thing he couldn't have. Emily had to hide Zola's heart medications in tiny drops of sweetened formula, feeding him through a small tube, while Maya watched with glassy and distant eyes. The palpable tension of the clinic was replaced by a somber hope as the team prepared for a specialized surgery to correct the malformation. Exactly a month after the incident, the rain was falling again, a soft tapping on the skylights that felt like a melody of hard-won victory. The surgery had been a success, and it was finally time for the reunion. Emily carried Zola back to the habitat, her heart hammering against her ribs. As she stepped inside and handed the infant to Maya, the entire staff held their breath. Maya reached out, her massive, leathery hands moving with a new, delicate precision. She held Zola's head, not with the desperate grip of a panicked mother, but with the gentle, sure touch of a protector. Zola didn't scream. He didn't shriek. He let out a soft, satisfied chirp and buried his face in his mother's amber fur. Emily realized then that she hadn't just witnessed a medical miracle, she had witnessed the cognitive depth of a mother who had learned to redefine her own strength for the sake of her child. As the sun finally began to break through the gray Tuesday clouds, casting long, golden shadows across the straw, Emily watched the two of them, Maya and her miracle son, huddled together in a tight, silent embrace. The chaotic symphony of the zoo was back in harmony, and the steady, healthy beat of Zola's heart was the most beautiful sound Emily had ever heard. The shocking reality was that Maya hadn't just been a mother. She had been a student of her own child's pain. She had recognized that her old ways of comforting him weren't working, and she had trusted the humans to fix what she couldn't. The jagged scar on her palm was no longer a symbol of past trauma, but a badge of the resilience it took to let go so that she could eventually hold him even closer. In the weeks that followed, the story of the mother who learned to touch became a part of the zoo's permanent history, a legend whispered by keepers and visitors alike. Visitors would stand at the glass in a different kind of silence now, watching Maya and Zola with a new level of respect and awe. But for Emily, it was more personal. She saw the way Maya would now check Zola's movements with a watchful, intelligent gaze, her soulful eyes reflecting a wisdom that needed no words. The palpable tension of that rainy Tuesday had been replaced by a deep, abiding peace that seemed to radiate from the very straw of their nest. Zola's health continued to improve rapidly, and he soon became the most active juvenile in the wing. He remained on a strict regimen of follow-up scans to ensure the surgery held, but the quivering in his heart was gone for good. Kobe, the neighboring gorilla patriarch, seemed to celebrate the recovery in his own way, often hooting a peace call when Zola climbed the high ropes for the first time after his release. The unbreakable bonds were now a tangible, heavy presence in the air, connecting every inhabitant of the primate wing in a shared victory. Emily started a groundbreaking new program at the zoo, focusing on sensory processing in great apes, and the subtle ways medical issues can manifest as behavioral distress. She used Zola's case as the primary example, proving that behind every screaming infant is a story waiting to be understood. The desolate refuge of the wing had been transformed into a sanctuary of profound medical and emotional understanding. As the sun set on another rainy Tuesday, Emily watched the family from the observation deck, her heart full to bursting. She saw Maya pull Zola into a warm, amber-colored embrace, her hands resting softly on his back as the rain hummed a lullaby on the glass. The unbreakable bond was a living reality that defied the cold, clinical logic of the wild. The chaotic symphony of the zoo continued its daily rhythm, but for those who knew the story, the melody was forever changed by the mother who learned that the most powerful touch is the one that knows when to be gentle. Every time the rain drummed on the glass, Emily was reminded of the thin, shimmering line between pain and peace, and the incredible, enduring strength of a mother's heart. She looked at the jagged scar on Maya's hand through the binoculars and knew that the troop was finally beautifully safe. The bond between Maya and Zola, once fractured by a hidden agony, had transformed into a partnership of absolute trust. They were often seen exploring the high canopies together, Maya now guiding Zola's movements with a confidence that only comes from surviving a crisis. The cognitive depth of the infant was on full display as he seemed to have internalized the care he received, often attempting to groom Emily's hand through the mesh during morning checks. The palpable tension that usually preceded medical evaluations had vanished, replaced by a rhythmic, orderly flow of care that the keepers called the Zola rhythm. It was a legacy of healing that would define the troop for generations to come. A gift born from a moment of shocking vulnerability and a mother's refusal to give up on her son. In the quiet, sacred hours before the zoo opened its doors to the public, Emily would often sit with her coffee and watch the soulful, gentle giants as they navigated their complex world. She realized that her own understanding of nature and motherhood had been fundamentally deepened by that screaming infant. She no longer saw Maya just as a biological entity to be managed, but as a teacher and a protector who understood the value of a single, painless heartbeat. The desolate refuge of her own professional exhaustion was gone, replaced by a profound, renewed sense of purpose. She knew that as long as she was there, she would tell Zola's story. The story of the baby orangutan who screamed at his mother's face until the world finally learned how to heal him. If you enjoyed this emotional journey of a mother's intuition and the incredible, life-changing discovery of Zola's recovery, please don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us share these stories of animal empathy and the miracles of nature with the world. And if you want to see more heartwarming rescues and animal reunions, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Your support allows us to continue our mission of sharing the unbreakable bonds of the animal kingdom. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video as we explore the incredible hidden depths of the wild world around us.